I am going to tell you the moment I understood what I had signed, and it is not the moment I signed it. It is not even close to that moment. It is 2.5 years later, standing in the kitchen, in the apartment, where his name is the only name on the lease, listening to the USPS notification sound on my phone, the sound I associate with immigration correspondence, the sound that had in the last 18 months become one of the things I organized my emotional state around, and realizing that the reason I am still here, in this kitchen, in this apartment, is not love. It is math, and the math is his. I had been a graphic designer for 4 years when I moved to be with him. I had a client list, a reputation in a city that was not the city where he lived, and a portfolio I had built entirely by myself. I was 28. I thought the ability to start over in a new place was something I had demonstrated before and could demonstrate again. I had no idea that the specific kind of starting over I was about to do was a different category of thing from anything I had done before. He was American. I was on an H-1B visa sponsored by a company in my previous city. When the relationship became serious, the practical problem presented itself. I couldn't simply move. My visa was tied to my employer. To be with him in his city, I would need either a new job with a new employer sponsor or a different visa pathway. He offered a third option. He had a consulting firm. Small, legitimate. He could sponsor me. It would take time and documentation and money, but he could do it, and it would mean I was not tied to an employer's decisions about my future. It would mean independence. He used that word independence in the conversation about the sponsorship. And I remember it specifically because independence was the thing I thought I was protecting by agreeing. The arrangement was, he sponsors my work visa through his firm. I do some freelance design work for the firm's clients at a reduced rate while I build my own client base in the new city. And eventually we see where things go. It sounded reasonable. It sounded like a practical partnership between two people who were already in a relationship and wanted to make it work logistically. The first thing that changed after the paperwork was signed was his relationship to my schedule. Before, he had been interested in my schedule in the way that a partner is interested, aware of it, accommodating toward it, occasionally adjusting plans around it. After, he became interested in my schedule in a different way. He had opinions about which clients I should take and which I should turn down. He had concerns about me working late. He had questions about the nature of my professional relationships with clients he didn't know. He framed all of this as caring. He was protective. He wanted to understand my world. He was invested, he said, in ways that made it natural for him to be involved. I told myself it was adjustment. We were living together now for the first time. He was learning how I worked. I was learning his rhythms. The friction was a feature of proximity, not a signal about anything deeper. The USPS app notification became part of my nervous system around month 8. Any update on the visa application was delivered there first. He had set up the joint account for the immigration attorney fees, both our names on it, but his card connected. His decision when to release payments. He was paying. He framed this as fair. He was sponsoring. He was paying the filing fees. It made sense for him to manage the financial pipeline. I had not disagreed. I had been grateful, actually, in the way that you are grateful for something that seems generous when you first receive it, before you understand the structure it creates. What I understand now is that gratitude is one of the oldest mechanisms in the architecture of this particular trap. You accept something that looks like a gift. The gift creates an obligation that neither of you names directly. The obligation shapes your behavior in small ways. You are less willing to push back on things that cost him, emotionally or practically, because there is a ledger you are aware of, even though no one ever hands it to you. You are not controlled by a threat. You are managed by an account balance that only one of you can see clearly. I would never let a man control my money. I had said this. I had said it in the early part of our relationship, in the comfortable way you state principles when they feel secure, when you are not yet in the situation that tests them. I said it about other women's situations. I said it the way people say things that describe who they believe they are. 12 months after the sponsorship was filed, I had 3 clients of my own in the new city. I had not dissolved my previous client relationships entirely, but I had let them thin out because managing them across the time zone difference was difficult, and he had expressed more than once a concern about whether I was actually present in the life we were building or whether I was still living in another city in my head. He did not say stop working with those clients. He said he was worried about me. He said I seemed scattered. He said it with concern. He said it every time I was on a long call with someone from my old city. The money from the 3 new clients went into a joint account we had opened. His suggestion, it made sense, he said, for our finances to be integrated while my business was establishing itself in the new place. I was not required to deposit into that account. There was no rule. There was just the ambient understanding that our finances were shared, and that taking the money into a separate account would be a statement about the nature of our relationship. He never said that. I arrived at it on my own. That is how this particular kind of arrangement works. The anchor was the notification sound. Every time it came, there was a moment of physiological response, a quickening, a hope that something had progressed, a fear that something had gone wrong. My immigration status was by this point dependent on the petition he had filed through his firm. If he withdrew the petition, or if the firm ceased to exist, or if his paperwork about my employment was challenged, I would need to address my status from the beginning. I had researched this. I understood the practical reality. I did not talk to him about it directly because raising it would mean naming the power dynamic we had both chosen not to name. The USPS notification was small. It was a sound on a phone, but it had become the frequency on which a significant portion of my anxiety operated. And he had not created the anxiety, but he had created the conditions in which the anxiety attached to something he controlled. The exit mirage appeared around month 18. Reliably, once the green card came through, things would change. My status would be permanent. I could take any job, any client, open my own accounts without it meaning anything about our relationship, work late without it being a conversation. Once the green card came through, I would have the independence I had been told the arrangement was creating. I said this to myself. I said it in the voice of someone explaining a reasonable situation to a concerned friend who doesn't fully understand the context. What I understood, standing in the kitchen with the USPS sound in my hand, was that the green card was not a finish line I was approaching. It was a moving target that had been keeping me oriented toward a future that required me to stay where I was and continue the behavior that the current arrangement required. I was not waiting for freedom. I was waiting for permission to want it. Permission from a process that he managed, that he could slow or speed based on decisions about fees and paperwork that I had no access to. I had not let a man control my money. That was still technically true. I had done something different. I had let a man become the administrative center of a life that I had presented to myself as my own, while my access to that life depended on his continued participation in maintaining it. The paperwork had not changed the relationship. It had revealed the one that was already there, waiting to become visible. The USPS notification came again. I set the phone face down on the counter. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. I thought about how many women are somewhere in this same structure right now, at a different point in the same timeline, before the paperwork or just after signing, or listening to a notification sound they have trained themselves not to examine too carefully. I thought about what I had said I would never let happen. I did not leave that night. That is not the ending, because this is not that kind of story. The ending is what I know now, that I did not know then. The moment the paperwork transferred was not the moment something was taken from me. It was the moment something was confirmed, that had been building since before the first signature, in a structure so reasonable looking that I had described it to other people as an example of a relationship that worked. The notification sound is different now. It means something different when I hear it. But that is another story, and you probably already know how it ends. There is a phrase that gets used in descriptions of coercive control: the fog. The way that the accumulation of small, individually reasonable seeming decisions creates a state in which you cannot clearly see the structure you are inside. The fog is not stupidity. It is not weakness. It is what happens when every individual piece of the trap is designed to have a coherent, benign explanation that you yourself can produce on demand. He's protective. He's invested. He's supporting me while I get established. All of those things were true. None of them was the whole story. The fog is made of true things arranged in a way that makes the shape of what they add up to impossible to see from inside. The shape of what they added up to was, I had signed a document that made his continued goodwill a material condition of my life in this country. He had not created that condition maliciously. He had created it by being the one who offered the solution to a problem I had, and by being the person I trusted. The manipulation was not a plan. It was a natural result of a structure neither of us had explicitly examined, one that happened to benefit one person at the expense of the other in ways that became clearer as the relationship deteriorated. What you carry away from a situation like this is not just the understanding of what happened. It is the new fluency, the ability to see the shape of a structure before you are inside it. That fluency is expensive, but it is also the one thing nobody can take from you once you have it.